Welcome to Your Most Beautiful Life, where we go beyond baskets and bins to organize a life that nourishes the best of who you are. Whether you're a new mom finding your rhythm or an empty nester building a legacy, this podcast will inspire and equip you to create a life filled with beauty, peace, and intention. Let's build your most beautiful life together. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. And when I say welcome back, I'm actually saying that to myself too, because this January I made a decision that I don't normally make, or at least I don't allow myself to make. And instead of charging into the new year and setting aggressive goals and trying to gain momentum right away, I allowed myself to winter. And when I say winter, I don't mean that I disappeared or checked out. I mean, I let growth happen beneath the surface. I let things be quieter and move more slowly. And I paid attention to the rhythm of the sunrise and sunset instead of the rhythm of productivity and output. So this is a kind of, a wisdom that winter offers, the kind that doesn't demand visible results, but invites deep rooting. And honestly, I needed that. So this episode is my second episode of 2026, and it feels like a return to you, a return to rhythm, and a return to this weekly space when we think deeply and live intentionally together. And what I want to talk about today actually grows directly out of that wintering season, because there's a particular kind of exhaustion. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that does not come from overworking or from crisis, but from living slightly misaligned for a long time. And it is that exhaustion that comes from carrying responsibility without rhythm, from responding without choosing, and from filling your days without inhabiting them. And what makes it difficult to name is that nothing looks obviously broken. Your life may be good, and home may be functioning, and your responsibilities may be handled. But inside of that goodness, there's a subtle drift. A drift away from intentionality, a drift away from clarity, and a drift away from the version of you who once felt awake and decisive and aligned. And over time, that drift trains your nervous system into a pattern. So you wake up already bracing and already rehearsing the day and already scanning for what could go wrong or what needs attention. And because that pattern becomes normal, you begin to assume that this is simply adulthood. And this is simply responsibility and simply how life works. But it is not how you were created to live. You were not created to survive your own life. You were created to steward it. And when you begin to notice the drift, not dramatically and not quietly, that noticing is not a failure, it's an awakening. Now, here is where most women misunderstand the solution. They assume that if they just had more time, or if things would just calm down, or if this one season would pass, how many of you said, if I could just get through Christmas, then they would finally feel more present, more clear, and more aligned. But drift is not corrected by time, it's corrected by direction. And direction requires a container. Because if time is just open-ended, when your life stretches out in a vague, undefined way with goals like this year or someday, your brain doesn't know how to prioritize. And when your brain doesn't have a clear focus, it defaults for scanning for problems. Who's good at scanning for problems? This is not a weakness. It's a wiring. So our brain is designed to conserve energy and to detect threats. And so in the absence of a defined intention, it returns to its survival patterns. This is why a year can feel overwhelming and why resolutions can fade by February. Who can name their resolution now? Much less, let's try to name it in July. And this is why you can want to change. You can want it deeply and still feel stuck. Because desire without structure diffuses. An effort without containment scatters. So the issue is not that you lack discipline. It's actually that you lack a defined season. And this is where 12 weeks enters the story. 12 weeks is long enough to change something real, but short enough to stay connected to it. It's long enough for a new neural pathway to begin to strengthen through repetition. It's long enough for your nervous system to experience consistency instead of chaos. And it's long enough to build evidence that you are a woman who follows through. But it's short enough that your mind can hold it. And your brain loves a finish line. It loves defined edges. It loves knowing this is what to focus on right now. And so when you step into a 12-week cycle, you're not just choosing a goal. You're telling your brain what matters. And once you tell your brain what matters, it begins to recognize and reorganize around that declaration. And the reticular activating system, that filtering system in your brain, it begins to scan for alignment. It notices what supports your focus, and it quiets what distracts your focus. So it begins solving instead of spiraling. And that's not an accident. That's by design. God created your mind with the capacity to align with intention. But intention must be named. And so 12 weeks gives intention structure. And when you live without seasons, your life feels reactive. When you live inside of seasons, your life feels directed. So this is the shift from survival to stewardship. Survival asks, what do I need to handle today? Stewardship asks, what am I building in this season? Survival scans for problems. Stewardship cultivates growth. And when you choose a 12-week focus, you're not just managing tasks, you're stepping into stewardship. You're saying, this season matters, my attention matters, and my energy will not be scattered. And something subtle but powerful begins to happen. Your emotional state shifts. So instead of constant urgency, there's clarity. Instead of scattered effort, there's focus. Instead of being behind, there's movement. And this emotional shift is not superficial, it's neurological. Clarity calms the nervous system. And defined direction reduces internal chaos. And completion builds confidence. So you begin to feel steady, and that steadiness is the soil where growth happens. Now, here is where this becomes spiritual, not just strategic. If you do not decide what matters in this season, you will default to what is loudest. And what is loudest is rarely what is most meaningful. So the question becomes, what do you want? Not what would impress someone, not what would prove something, not what feels safe, but what desire keeps resurfacing. Desire is not indulgent. It's directional. Scripture even tells us that when we delight ourselves in the Lord, He shapes and gives us the desires of our hearts. So desire is, in its truest form, is often the intersection between design and calling. And it is the whisper of possibility. I love that so much. Desire is the whisper of possibility. And when you name the desire inside of a 12-week container, you give it room to grow. You give it focus, you give it consistency, and over time, what felt abstract becomes embodied. The real transformation of 12-week cycles is not what you accomplish, it's who you become in the process. You are a woman who follows through, a woman who chooses instead of reacts, a woman who lives aligned with her design, and a woman who honors what God has placed inside of her. And that does not happen through some dramatic reinvention. It happens through steady formation. One focused season, then another, and then another, stacked together over time. This is how character forms. This is how confidence forms. This is how alignment deepens. And it's how you become everything that God created you to be. Not overnight, but intentionally. So the next 12 weeks are coming. Right now, we're actually in the 9th week of the first quarter of 12 weeks. So you can take the next 4 weeks and begin to set up your intention. Or you can already dive in and use the next 4 weeks to look into what your desires are. And as these next 12 weeks get here, you can drift through them or you can define them. And that decision, that quiet, intentional decision, may be the turning point you've been waiting for. So here's what I want you to do. Don't rush past this. The next 12 weeks are coming, whether you define them or not. Why not decide that they matter? And why not begin paying attention to what your heart keeps circling? Because in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to walk you through something very specific. Something that will help you step into a 12-week cycle with clarity and intention. We're going to do this together. So start noticing, start listening, and start asking yourself, what would it look like for this next season to be intentional? This might be the turning point, and I'm so glad you're here for it. I'll see you next week. That's it for today on Your Most Beautiful Life. I hope you're feeling inspired to create more beauty, peace, and intention in your everyday life. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you'll never miss what's next. And if you loved it, I'd be so grateful if you leave a review or share it with a friend. Until next time, keep building your most beautiful life.